Hello class, for this tutorial we will work through exercise 2 at the end of chapter 8 of your textbook. Again, a 3D model, looks like some sort of a hanger. So I'm going to go to that CAD 3D template again, which worked fairly well, and draw this guy out. Now it's kind of an odd, both pieces are kind of odd that we will join together, so we'll start in 2D with these. First, adjusting our units to the decimal inches, to the thousandth, and then begin our drawing. So I think I'm going to go in my view cube to the top view and then hit the arrow to rotate around to begin all this work, and turn off that grid too. Alright, and I don't like the perspective view, so right click and go back into parallel perhaps too. Now to draw this, there's quite a bit going on. I think I'm going to start with just a big rectangle to kind of bound my objects. I've done the math and I believe that I am 4 by 3 as my base shape, if you will. So this inner size would be, I believe, 2 by 2. So another rectangle, dimension 2 inner, 2 inner. So I've just created, by moving these two rectangles on top of each other, kind of the outline of what I believe my shape will end up being. And I can TR enter and trim away what's left between the two. And it's not letting me, so I got to pick that object and then trim it away. So hopefully that makes sense as the beginning point. Now these outer corners, it says we have a radius of 1.5, so I'm going to do a fillet. F-I-L-L-E-T, enter. R for radius, enter. 1.5, enter. So I'll get my two corners to get my radius. Now the inner radius, it says, is 0.5, so fill it again, R, enter, 0.5, enter. And that's looking good so far. Now out here, it's not shown, but it's implied that this would also be that same 0.5 radius, so I can just hit spacebar and continue the command because it remembers that 0.5 radius from before. So there's our overall beginning shape. Now it's time to add the holes, which have a diameter of 0.5. So I'm going to go ahead and make a circle from the CEN enter of that radius, D enter for diameter, 0.5 enter. And again, that looks correct, I believe. Now here I can MI for mirror, or I could copy, pick that, pick the midpoint, and hit F8, and click and enter to get that to the other side. Let's see what else we can do. That's it for the base shape. Let's draw the little gizmo for the top here. So it looks like it's made up of a few circles to begin with. The first one has a diameter, or rather a radius, of 0.5. The next one, you can type in center and hover till the center lights up, has a diameter of 0.5. And the overall height is really hard to come by, but I believe it is 1 from very top to very bottom. So that would mean if I do a line and come down another inch, that would be kind of the overall height of this object. Now the thickness is 0.375, so what I can do is offset by half that distance, which is 0.1875, so 0.1875. Type that again, 0.1875, and I can offset that line half the distance. Now our actual sides go from what appears to be the quadrant to this corner point. So if I do a line from quadrant, and if you don't see quadrant, you can turn on your O-snap to get it to the base, to the next quadrant. I'll erase those construction lines, TR, enter, trim away that guy. And it appears that the quadrant isn't quite right, so perhaps we were supposed to go to tangent. So I'm going to erase these lines, do a line from the bottom to TAN, which is tangent, and that looks much better. So again, align to TAN. Tangent of the circle is the point where it just barely bounds the edge of that radius. And then I can TR enter and trim away what was left of that circle. That looks much better. Okay, now that we have our 2D line work done, let's go back to an ISO view. I'm going to orbit around to a comfortable viewing angle. And I'm going to extrude these guys. So these objects here are already loops, the way that I started with a rectangle and filleted, so I can just pick all those at once and enter. Drag that mouse up and my thickness is 0.375. And then this guy, the thickness is actually different, it's 0.5. So pick him and see how it doesn't work because it's a hollow object because this was not a region, they're separate lines. So I have to type in region and pick those 4 lines to make those into a region. The circle was already a loop. Now if I extrude, pick all of those, drag up and type in 0.5 enter, I'll have it. So I can subtract the holes by typing subtract. Keep your source object, enter. Pick the one you're going to delete, enter. That hole's there. Spacebar repeats the command, source object, space, and pick the 2 that I'm going to subtract, space. So my holes are now drilled. And to get this in the right orientation that it's displayed, at least in the textbook, we need to do a rotate. I'm going to orbit around a little bit. So I'm going to do 3D rotate. Pick the object. Pick the base point, which is somewhere on the bottom here. Axis is the red, or the x-axis. Angle is 90. So now that's rotated up. And this guy here, we will also have to do a 3D rotate. So spacebar repeats the command. Pick it. Base point. I need to rotate it around that way first, and then I need to rotate it around this way. So you can kind of do 2 steps in one command and then escape to enter to get it rotated where you want. Now I need to move from the midpoint of that side to the midpoint of this side. In the last step, you guessed it, is a union. Those 2 hook together and now they're one solid object. Orbit around for a moment to make sure it all looks good, which I think it does, just like so. So do a UCS, enter, make sure your world UCS is set up correctly. Now it's time to move into paper space, so click on one of your layout tabs, and as I showed you in the previous video, you can stretch or use grip points, get your viewport close to 1/4 of the page to leave room for your 4 views, something like so. If you double click in there and make it active and then double click your scroll wheel, it'll zoom extents. You can also type in zoom extents. Now double click outside to unactivate. I'm going to do CO to copy. Pick that viewport space and then copy it. And I can repeat that command to get the 4 viewports. So we're looking something like this. Now on this first one, I'm going to, again, my screen's kind of small, so zoom in with that unactive, double click to activate, and then click on my top view if it'll let me. So there's our top view. Down here we'll want a front view, and down here we'll want a side view, just like so. And we'll leave the 3D view. Now, like I showed you before, pick all 4. We're going to go down here to our viewport toolbar and change that scale to 1:1 and see if it will all fit. And it looks like they will. So those all fit in there just perfectly, except for my ISO. I'll have to stretch or drag up just a little bit. Now it won't quite fit. It is acceptable for your ISO view to be a little bit less than scale, so if I zoom in and out with my scroll wheel, I can get it to fit. Once you like where everything is, select all 4 viewports and click the padlock at the bottom to lock those viewports. Now I can double click and zoom and it won't lose the scale. Next is to annotate. So double click your scroll wheel or zoom extents, Z enter, E enter, so you can see your whole page. Click on annotate, and we're going to use annotative as our dimension style, which is preset in the template, and then start a few linear dimensions. So in a top view, maybe I'm going to go the whole width. And by the way, this is also a double check for you. You can peek back at the drawing, and like here in this case, I obviously clicked wrong because it's 3.92. So I'm going to do that again and make sure I'm getting the very outside edge of the object to get the 4.0. And perhaps I want the width on here too, 0.375. And you got to be careful because that'll snap away. Make sure you're hitting the right points. So in the front view, we'll add a few more dimensions. Perhaps the overall height here of 3. If you're doing radius, you can click on this radius button, click on any curve, and you can put a radius there, which is helpful. Same here on the inside. Got to repeat that command again. The radius. Oh, I did center mark, and that's why it's not showing up. Radius. Center mark is nice too, but we were asked to do a radius. And there it goes. Too much line work to pick from. So I'm not going to continue. You get the drill here. Add dimensions that are necessary for each face, and then you can add a title block at the top to include information such as your name and the exercise number. But this is how you would complete exercise 2 at the end of chapter 8. Thanks for your time.